Hello, dear students. I'm going to discuss with you the major ideas of critical essay by Cleanth Brooks. Title of the essay is Irony as a Principle of Structure. I repeat, Cleanth Brooks' essay Irony as a Principle of Structure. Irony as a Principle of Structure is an important critical essay by Cleanth Brooks. In his essay, he highlights the importance of metaphors and irony in a literary text. He has also emphasized the use of irony and its importance in a literary work. In this essay, he says that the use of metaphor, allows a poet to show a particular thing in order to give a more general level of meaning. Brooks, in his essay, refers to four main concepts. First one is the concept of metaphor. Second, the concept of organic relationship. Third, the concept of context. And third one is the concept of irony. The first concept is the concept of metaphor, which Brooks has taken up in this essay. Metaphor. Now let's talk about the definition of metaphor, that how the word metaphor is defined by Cleanth Brooks in this essay. Metaphor is a rediscovery of modern poetic techniques. By making use of metaphor in poetry, a poet can deal with universal things in the world. Metaphor helps a poet to give a more broader, more general, and universal level of meaning. For example, there is one expression used by a poet. Expression is a red rose. I repeat, a red rose. Now rose is a type of flower which is source of beauty and fragrance. But here, by referring to rose, which is a particular flower, it's a name of a flower, it's a type of a flower. Here, by making use of that statement, a red rose, the poet suggests the universal and general thing, that is love. So, by making use of this, he has used this word rose metaphorically in order to symbolize, in order to convey the meaning, the symbolic significance of love. As Brooks himself says in this essay, this is a quote from this essay, Cleanth Brooks' essay, that the poem is not a collection of beautiful or poetic images without the use of metaphor. It means metaphor is an essential component of any poem. It should be very much there in a good poem. Brooks also says in his essay that the beauty of the poem is quite similar to the flowering of the whole plant. Flowering of a whole plant. Here the word whole, complete, is highlighted. So it means that a plant looks beautiful only when it has stem, leaves, roots, flowers, etc. These are all parts, or we can say components of that plant. In the same way, a poem is complete only when it has all the necessary elements, when it has all the necessary components like metaphor, symbol, irony, images, etc. Now, let's talk about another point which is highlighted here in Brooks' essay. Brooks says that if the poet wants to say something, if he wants to convey his idea, then he should not say it directly. Rather, he says it only through the use of metaphors. Means the beauty of the poem lies in the use of metaphors or in the indirect reference of that thing. But he is also talking about this thing that there is a risk in using metaphors. He may not be able to say clearly or fully what he wants to say. But the poet is ready to take that risk because direct statement, according to Brooks, direct statement in a poem can lead to abstraction and threatens to take us out of poetry altogether. So, this is the quote from this essay. Brooke also says, another point, that Brooks also says that the beauty of the poem is the flowering of the whole plant. Flowering of the whole plant. Now, this is the second concept of Brooks' essay. In the beginning of this lecture, I told you that Brooks has divided this essay in four parts. The first concept which he highlighted in this essay is the concept of metaphor. Now, the second concept of Brooks in this essay is the concept of organic relationship, that all the parts of the poem, all the various components of the poem, they should have a proper relationship between one another. Now, Brooks says that metaphor implies a principle of organic relationship. Principle of organic relationship. In order to define this concept, Brooks take the example of a plant. Again, he's talking about plant. Just as a plant consists of its various parts like stem, roots, leaves, flowers, fruits, etc. But as a whole, it is known as plant. A plant is complete only when it has all these parts like stem, flowers, roots, etc. In the same way, poetry or a poem is complete only when it has all the necessary elements. Then irony, metaphor are various elements of a poem. So, in the same way, poetry consists of different elements like words, phrases, images, symbols, use of metaphors, rhyme, rhythm, etc. All these elements contribute in creating a poem. All these elements are interdependent on one another. So, Brooks in this essay says that poetry has a coherent structure, it has a unified structure. He also cites another example to strengthen his point. Now, let's talk about that example. He has given example of a kite, you know, kite, that a kite has most of the kites, they are having a tail at back, right? So in the lower part, the tail of the kite, it control, what is its function? That the tail of that kite controls the direction of the movement of kite. It also allows the kite to rise and to move in the downward direction. So it means that such smaller things like tail of a kite, he has just given an example to explain his point. So it means that even sometimes, in some cases, smaller things, they are important to form a big complete structure, big complete whole. So sometimes smaller parts, the smaller things, they contribute a lot. Then the third concept which he is talking about in this essay is the concept of context. 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 Context means the relationship of words with one another and also with the main theme. The same words or phrases, listen very carefully, this is important point, that the same words or phrases when used in different contexts produce different meaning. Sometimes what happened, that when the same word is used in different poems, but in both the poems that word refers to different meaning. So it means that it has been used, that word has been used in different context in both the poems. Then he also compares a poem with drama, with play. He suggests that the poem is like a drama. In drama, an utterance or a dialogue gets its meaning according to the context, according to the situation, according to the requirement. That utterance or that dialogue has a relevance. It gets its meaning according to the context in which it is used. So, same is the case with poem also. Further, now, moving forward to the next point, to the another point which he has highlighted, he says that good poems or great poems have poetic qualities because of a particular context. Any poetic statement or the way in which symbols, metaphors, etc. are used in a poem provide it a new meaning. That how those words are arranged, how those words are used, and how those words they join together to produce a new meaning, so that really matters. So in this way, Brooks explain the concept of context. So first, we in the first part of this lecture we talked about the first concept. What was the first concept? The first concept was the concept of metaphor. Then we talked about the concept of context. Second one was the concept of organic relationship, and the third was concept of context. He also gives an example of Shakespearean play. Name of that play is King Lear. In this play, Shakespeare used one expression, and what is that expression? That ripeness is all. Ripeness, RIPENESS. Ripeness is all. Now, this seemingly this expression has a it should have a positive relevance, but here in this play Shakespeare has used this expression with negative meaning, with negative connotations. Then there is another example of his play, that is Hamlet. In that play he used one expression, to be or not to be. To be or not to be. Now, this expression shows complexity of dilemma or confusion in the mind of the central character Hamlet. So, what Brooks here wants to highlight, he wants to highlight the point that sometimes the same word is used in one work with different meaning than in some other poem, in some other work that particular word has altogether different meaning. So it depends that how that word has been used, in which context that word has been used by the writer. Now moving to the last concept of Clint Brooks in his essay. The fourth concept of this essay is the concept of irony. Irony means the use of words. Irony means the use of words that are opposite of what you really mean. Brooks says in this essay that sometimes a statement says just the opposite of what it really means. It means it has its opposite meaning. It is used in its opposite context. Now, Brooks defines irony as, this is the quote from this essay. He defines irony as the obvious wrapping of the statement by the context. It means that by the use of sarcasm, by the use of opposite meaning words, meaning is implied. Means by making use of opposites. Sometimes we use the same word and then in the next the poet or that writer is trying to emphasize its meaning in the opposite sense. So that is irony. The importance of irony is that sometimes unimportant or non-literary utterances gets a specific meaning through the use of irony. He also talks about different types of irony in this essay: tragic irony, self irony, mocking, verbal irony, etc. Then, towards the last part of this essay, Brooks applies the use of all these concepts, the use of all these four concepts, especially irony, in the poems. And what are those poems? First one is My Last Duchess, and the second one is The Chimney Sweeper. Now, to conclude this essay, we can say that the interpretation of all these poems help to conclude that irony is one of the major principal structure in poetry. As the title of this essay suggests, that irony as a principle of structure. It means irony is one of the important parts. Irony or metaphor, and metaphor is, they are one of the important parts of components of poetry. I hope I'm able to cover all the major ideas of this essay. If you have any query, then you can ask me. You can send a text message, you can WhatsApp, or you can give me a call. Thank you.